Well, it's exactly 7 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started, and we'll wait for our Pally friends to join us later. Tonight we have a presentation by Catherine DiMaggio, and Catherine is a college counselor, a certified life coach for teens and adults, and a yoga and meditation instructor. And we could all use her. I know I could. She earned her master's in counseling from Columbia University and worked in public and private high schools in New York City and LA for 7 years, doing guidance and college counseling. You will have questions after the presentation. We want to let Catherine get through her presentation, and then we'll do questions at the end. But I ask that you put your questions in the Q&A rather than in the chat. And then she will address all the questions at the end of the presentations. So Catherine, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine. I'm so excited to be speaking with you tonight about the stress and anxiety that comes along with the college process and how this can put a bit of a strain on that parent-child relationship. Sometimes home can feel a little stressful, a little tense during this time of the college process, and how we can cope with that and really give you some practical tools that might alleviate some of that tension and also help you to sort of see where each other is coming from, right? Students being able to see where your parents might be coming from, and parents thinking about what your team is feeling and going through right now, so we can really partner together to make this a smoother process. So a little bit about me, pretty much what Karen said to introduce me. I have worked in high school counseling, guidance, and college counseling. So I've done the social emotional counseling as well as a lot of college counseling, both in New York, LA, some of the really top performing specialized high schools in New York, as well as a private school here in LA. But my background is also in yoga and meditation. So my area of focus and my passion, what I bring to college counseling, is to balance the step-by-step process of helping students find the colleges that would be a great fit for them, complete the application process, work on their essays, manage their deadlines, do all the things, while also managing their stress, their overwhelm, coming from a place of empowerment, encouragement, positivity, so that they can cope with the feelings of stress that come along with this process. So I believe in kind of the blend of both of those things. First and foremost, let's work on meeting ourselves where we're at, meeting yourself where you're at. It wouldn't be a presentation coming from me if we didn't start with a deep breath. So if it feels comfortable for you, you can close your eyes. Allow yourself to take a deep breath in through your nose, fill all the way up your belly, your lungs, your chest, and completely release on the exhale. You can open mouth sigh. It's okay if you feel silly. I can't see any of you doing it, so don't worry about it. And you can open your eyes. We just allow ourselves to ground into this moment. You probably worked before this, had your whole work day ahead of this. So letting yourself really transition to being present with what we're talking about right now, giving ourselves that pause is really, really powerful. I want to start by saying you are doing such an amazing job, right? Parents, students, whoever is watching this, you have made it through over a year and a half of pandemic living, right? This pandemic that has affected almost every area of our lives, our livelihood, our stress, our health, our emotional health, our physical health, our socialization, our total understanding of the world around us, our ability to predict what's coming next. Everything has been flipped on its head the last year and a half plus. So really, I want to start by giving ourselves a lot of self-compassion and a lot of credit for making it to here today in one piece. And also with the college process, you're making progress. I know comparison can come up a lot in this process of like, oh, someone has it figured out more than I do. You're doing amazing. You showed up at this webinar, you're taking care of what you need to take care of. So really pause and give yourself some credit for how good you are doing and how well you are balancing everything. So the college process is stressful, right? We all know that. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of where that comes from and some of the components about the college process that makes it so particularly and uniquely stressful for students and parents. So there's so many parts to applying to college. There's so many steps, and that makes it very, very stressful. And all the steps can feel like they come with a lack of control. At the end of the day, we can't say what a year from now is going to look like. We can't say that we know where our child is going to be in school. We can't say that we know exactly what the financial aid package or anything like that is going to look like. There's so much we can't control and predict, and that automatically creates stress within us. So when there's a lot going on, plus not being able to control or predict, that creates the perfect storm for overwhelm, for anxiety, for us to really kind of feel a little off kilter and experience those behaviors and those symptoms of anxiety. So if your student, your child is typically has everything under control, never really complains, can be really self-motivated and stay cool under pressure, this could be, it may not be, but the college process could be the thing that kind of tips the scales and pushes them to their edge. If your child is already someone who does tend to get overwhelmed and sometimes does struggle with balancing many responsibilities, many deadlines, multiple things going on at the same time, the college process is going to exacerbate that, right? Because it's kind of like the ultimate of all those things, balancing lots of things, juggling deadlines, a lot of organization and executive functioning skills. So this can really be almost like the Olympics of all those things that create overwhelm. And when we think about anxiety, it can really come from one main root. There's one thing that 99% of anxious feelings come from, and that is fear. I can't tell if there's a delay. Okay, yeah, the word popped up. So that is fear. Fear is below the anxiety. That is what is creating the sense of anxiety, the stress, this overwhelm, the sense of like not being able to relax or wanting to control everything. It's coming from a deep-seated place of fear. And this is on the parent side and the teen side. So we'll kind of see how that plays out for both of them. For parents, these fears are coming from wanting so desperately what's best for your child, right? You love them so much. You want to give them on a silver platter the post-secondary experience that is going to be optimal for them. And in this situation, you can't do that, right? You want to give them what's best for them. And the college process is just inherently, you're unable to do that. So you want to be sure that everyone around, your student, your child, counselors, yourself, teachers, writing letters of recommendation, whoever it is doing what they need to do to make sure everything goes smoothly. And really to set your student up, your child up for the most successful future. So the fear is coming from this future that you cannot control for your child. There's also a sense from the parents I've worked with that comes from finding that balance between wanting to hand over control to your child, to your teenager, let them to be more independent and take ownership of this process, but also in the back of your head, wanting to know that they're following through with everything they're supposed to follow through on, take all the steps they're supposed to be taking. And that sort of tension in between, okay, like how involved should I be? How much should I be backing off? And not really wanting to misstep in that approach. Also, fear of missing out on an opportunity, right? Is there a college we don't know about? Is there a major we don't know about that's really a good fit for my son or daughter? Is there a scholarship I don't know about that's a good fit for my son or daughter? Should we have put them in soccer lessons when they were in elementary school, and that would have changed everything in their whole course of where they're at now as a senior? There's so much of this fear of we should have done this, or should we be doing this? Is there something I'm overlooking? And then, of course, like I said, lack of control, lack of predictability, that's always going to create fear, which then leads to senses of anxiety. And it doesn't need to be like anxiety all the time, but these bouts of stress that can come up. So for students, this can look like fear of misstepping, making a mistake, taking, the wrong step, skipping a step, something like that, making the wrong choice, choosing to apply to one school when they should have applied to another, choosing to do early decision if they shouldn't have been. All these things are stressing them out too. Of course, the fear of not getting in, not getting what they want. And to really put it in perspective, there is judgment involved inherently in the college process because there are admissions counselors looking at applications and saying, yes, you get in, no, you don't get in. So coming from the mind of a teenager, that often associates with their sense of value, right? Like this is everything they're putting on a platter, handing it over to an adult that they don't know, saying, am I good enough? So there's a lot of fear involved in that. They're comparing with their peers. Is someone else getting into a school that they really wanted to get into? Or is someone else doing something in a better way that they should be doing it? Feeling off track. Yeah, fear that other people have things figured out and they don't. They're also experiencing this lack of control. They're hearing from every adult in their lives right now, their parents, counselors, every teachers, about how important this is, how much they have to do. And they know it too. They know a lot is riding on this because it is super important. But they know that once they apply and once they go through this process, someone's going to tell them, yes, you get in, or no, you don't. And that's going to be, that's a lot for them to cope with. And that creates a lot of fear because they're putting their heart and soul out there for someone to evaluate. So I want to talk about how this can present itself. So we know that college is stressful, or college applications are stressful. And we know that stress and anxiety come from a root of fear. So how can fear possibly look in your teenager? And some of them are unexpected, or they can look like other things, right? So avoidance, procrastination, things that look like laziness, behaviors that look like they're not taking this seriously, they don't realize how important this is, could actually be masking a deep sense of fear and anxiety because it's just so overwhelming to even think about conquering this process, or they don't know who to ask their questions to, they don't want to disappoint someone, or it's easier to feel like they're going to be judged on less effort because it's like, well, I'm not going to put my whole effort into it. And then if I don't get in, it's not like I tried my hardest anyway, than to put their full heart and soul out there and feel like they're going to potentially not get in somewhere. So that avoidance, that procrastination that you may or may not be observing in your child is not necessarily a reflection of like they actually don't care or they're actually not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's because they care so much. So hiding information, closing off from you, maybe they don't want to tell you that they are off track or that they're confused about something or that they don't know what the next step is, or any other things that they might just be really nervous about talking to you about. So anger, losing their temper, acting out, these, especially in the college process, but even with younger students, really kind of stem from that sense of fear. And these are not healthy coping mechanisms, but they're coping mechanisms that teens turn to sometimes because fear is a lot harder to face. So what we can do about it, there's good news, okay? It's not all doom and gloom. We are going to talk about some ways to create some more harmony, create some more ease, balance, and peace in the home so we can kind of get through this process together. Our goal is to have compassion to ourselves, first and foremost, and to each other about what's going on, right? So recognize that fear, stress, anxiety are all normal parts of this process. And that's what's on both sides here. So when it seems like that, a mom and the son aren't agreeing, or it's them versus us, or however, wherever the tension lies, it's really not us versus them. It's fear on both sides. So there's really more in common than it might feel like sometimes when it feels like we're butting heads. Fear is the common denominator. So we can have compassion to ourselves for being scared, for being anxious, and compassion towards the other people in our homes for their fear that they're experiencing. As well as a common denominator, or you almost want to say common enemy, so to speak, there's also a common goal. Everyone wants to find the teenager a post-secondary fit, a great school that supports them first and foremost academically, gets them further along in their goals, their career goals, prepares them for a successful career, helps them thrive emotionally, socially, everything else, and have a really good setting for them to continue this next chapter of their life in. That's what the teenagers want. That's what the parents want. So we're on the same team here. We're both feeling fear and we're both wanting what's best for the child. Know that it is going to be stressful. So I wish I can tell you that after this presentation, it's going to feel like a walk in the park and you're going to feel like you could kick your feet up on the beach and relax. The college process is stressful. It is going to be that. It is going to be really busy. There's going to be a lot of work to get done. But if we know that that's just kind of a part of it, and it doesn't mean we're off track, it doesn't mean we're doing something wrong, it doesn't mean we're not good enough, we just kind of have to keep putting one foot in front of the other, then we can kind of take some of that pressure of judging ourselves for the stress off ourselves. Some stress is normal, right? If we experienced zero stress ever, why would we even make our November 1st deadlines? There's nothing in our body physiologically telling us, I have to do this at a certain time. This matters. This is important. So some level of stress is just going to be a part of this time. And that's just part of it. And remember to keep giving yourself credit. Remember the progress you're already making. Remember that you're doing a great job by seeking out resources, by seeking out help, from the college center, from whatever resources you're turning to. Remember that you're doing the right things. You don't need to know it all. You don't need to know how everything is done, but just by taking that step of asking for help and getting support, you're doing amazing. So remind yourself of this as often as you need to. Now for some tangible tips. And there's a few here. So these are things you can take with you tonight and start implementing. First and foremost, parents who are watching, please take care of yourselves. Remember, you have to put your air mask on an airplane before you put someone else's on. So are your basic needs being met? As a parent, you probably have more going on than just your son or daughter's college application process, right? There's other family responsibilities, there's work responsibilities, there's other things that could be going on. So make sure you're taking care of yourself through this time. Are you eating? Are you drinking water? Are you getting outside? Are you sleeping through the night? Are you connecting with your friends? Are you connecting with hobbies? Allow yourself to push pause on thinking about all the things that need to get done for a little while. It's okay. It's okay to kind of give yourself that pause. You're also modeling that for your child when you do take this time for self-care. And then the next thing would be, is your child's needs being met? Are they eating? Are they drinking water? Are they getting outside? Are they sleeping? I know sleep is like a hot commodity fall of senior year, but are they doing their best to get a full night's sleep? As a parent, try to encourage this in your child. Make sure that they know that taking breaks, that feeding themselves, that doing all the things that they need for their physical needs is how they're going to be the best applicant. So when they're feeling their best, then they're going to get their best grades, and then they're going to write their best essays, and all the things are going to come from them first feeling their healthiest. And I remember a student I worked with back in New York who was, for grades 9 through 11, had everything under control. He was like that kid that had all these advanced courses. He was in a research program that we offered at that school at the time. He was captain of the soccer team and was on an outside league as well. And every time I saw him, he was just happy-go-lucky, cool, calm, and collected, had everything under control. managed amazing grades, had a social life. He did all the things. And then when senior year came, he had a lot of early deadlines, a lot of supplements for very rigorous, highly selective schools that he was applying to, and he hit a wall. He had to take about almost a full week out of school for sick days just to sleep and catch up on taking care of himself. And I won't forget, his mom called me and said, Joseph is taking these sick days and he's really going to rest. We're going to let him just really rest what he, take the rest he needs and recover. And I had so much respect for that phone call. I'm like, yes, please do. So when he did come back to school, he was better. He was rejuvenated because he didn't work during those days off. He really let his body rest. And we don't have to wait for it to get to that point. We don't have to wait until our son or daughter has hit a wall and they need a week off from school. We can kind of start incorporating this as an expectation every day, that their needs are being met, that they're taking breaks, that they're getting to sleep at a hopefully healthy hour. Okay, so this is always one of my top tips, is to set a weekly meeting with your child. So I sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, that parents sometimes struggle at this point. Their son or daughter is 17 or 18. They kind of want to hand the baton off and be like, okay, they're independent. I want to have my hands off the process and let them take ownership of it. Meanwhile, your wheels are turning, being like, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Oh my gosh, I want to check in on them. And then when you do check in on them, they're defensive and they're like, leave me alone. Like, I've got it figured out. That plays out commonly. So by setting a weekly meeting, that's how you encourage independence and maturity in your child and treat them as an adult. It doesn't mean you completely remove yourself. That is not necessarily the type of presence your child needs right now. Because the truth is, they kind of want you to check in on them. So even when they say, don't bug me, don't bring this up, they do want some support, typically because of that fear and because they have questions that maybe they just don't know how to ask. So setting a weekly meeting creates structure to where you don't have to bring it up every day at the dinner table. You're able to enjoy your interactions as a family without bringing up, did you apply to this college? Did you research this? Did you visit this? And, that's constantly in the household, but you're still getting the answers that you need at a designated time. So what this could look like is, telling your son or daughter that this weekly meeting is meant to talk about their progress in the college process. You expect them to be upfront, honest, fully forthright about what's going on and questions that they have. Encourage honesty, even if it's that they fell behind, even if it's that they're not on track for something. Encourage that honesty, because you need to know that in order to help them through it. As part of them agreeing to that part of their bargain, you agree to not really bring up college outside of those weekly meetings. So you kind of are coming together as two adults, making an agreement, setting this expectation of how this is going to look, and give your child the choice of when these meetings are going to be. So again, give them a little bit of control. This whole process feels very out of their control. Let them feel a little bit of control in the choosing of when you're going to have this weekly meeting. Wednesday night, Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon, whatever it is, make it consistent and set the expectations ahead of time. You want to be kind and collaborative, yet firm, and follow through on consequences that would also be determined before you need to implement the consequences. So if one of the terms is that your child is going to be fully honest and transparent with you about their college process, and you have reason to believe they're not on track when they told you they were, maybe you get a call from the school or something like that, have previously established consequences of what happens. So if you set it up in the sense that you say, if I have any reason to believe, you're not being honest with me, or that there's something that you're not telling me, we'll have to go back to talking about college more frequently, or I'm going to have to give you more oversight, or like a consequence is going to be taking away the phone or taking away being able to hang out with friends, whatever it is, let your child respond with what the consequence is going to be, like, so that they're, again, it's collaborative. You're setting the expectation. Okay, we're going to have this meeting, and what is it going to look like for you? What ideas do you have if it doesn't go the way we plan? And let them give you feedback, and then follow through on the consequences. So both of these steps, the weekly meeting, setting up the consequences, following through on the consequences, is meant to be an alternative to losing our temper at our son or daughter and taking away the phone or giving some punishment, telling them they're grounded, whatever the case may be, feeling bad that we lost our temper, and then not following through on the punishment, right? Being like, okay, never mind, you're not grounded anymore. Here, have your phone back. That is more confusing to your teenager than being upfront about what the consequence from the start and then following through on the consequence. Then everyone knows what to expect. And then some mindful communication tools. These are not just for teenagers, so you might have heard these things before, but they really apply well during this time of the college process. When you have a concern, try to avoid always or never statements or statements that start with you, can feel very accusatory and put the person on the defense. So instead, you want to use objective observations and ask open-ended questions. So as an example, rather than, you never tell me what's going on at school, are you falling behind? Clearly, that's coming from a place of concern. That's coming from a place of love. It's not like the parent's trying to do anything wrong, but it can be received as finger pointing or blaming, or not necessarily facilitate an open and honest response, versus something like, I've noticed we haven't talked much lately about your schoolwork. That's kind of a neutral observation, right? There's no judgment there. There's no blame. It's not like you did something. It's just, we haven't talked much. What's been going on? That might create a little bit more space for you to hear what's been going on. Maybe there's something going on with a teacher that needs to be sorted out, or a peer relationship or a romantic relationship or anything else that could be stressing your son or daughter out, that's resulting in their school or their college applications falling behind or getting off track. So just something to kind of test out and see how the communication goes when you use some of this different language. Okay, so this is just kind of a practical tip, just so the parents know, you all know, maybe you know this already. Naviance is a fantastic tool, and you can incorporate checking Naviance into your weekly meetings with your child. The College Center might have information, I'm sure they have information about how they use Naviance in the process, how they use, maybe there's other databases or systems that you can sort of learn a little bit about, so that you can check with your child in those weekly meetings if they're making whatever milestones they're supposed to be making. Also, once students apply to college, each college gives them an application portal, which documents is everything received. And when the time comes, sometimes they notify students if their decision is ready on this portal. So if your son or daughter is telling you, yeah, I sent everything in, everything's good, they got everything, it's perfectly okay to be like, okay, let's pull up your application portals for XYZ schools and just double check and make sure they have everything. That way you can just kind of see it happens if something didn't transmit properly or they're waiting for something. Just know that that's available to you, and you can include that into your weekly meetings with your son or daughter. So any way that you can help your teen break down the college process. So again, it feels like this very big, insurmountable task of like 3,000 things they have to do, into fewer, smaller, more feasible steps is going to be really, really helpful. So even if it's just a matter of like taking a big list of things and helping them plan what days they're going to get everything done, that can be super helpful. Just, okay, what afternoon are you going to draft this essay? Like really break it down so that they know when they're going to do specifically what, instead of just, I have a million things to do by this one deadline. So that's a way that you can be really, really supportive in your students' process without necessarily kind of poking and putting them again on that defense of like, I've got it figured out. So really allow them to tell you how, how you can help them. If there is, a whiteboard, I know families sometimes will have like a communal whiteboard where they track like what's going on in the family that week. You can write things on the whiteboard of what they're supposed to be working on, help them use a planner. If they tell you that like writing it down in their phone works for them, fine, let them write it down on their phone if that's actually working. And again, creating that trust in this sort of partnership will allow them to be able to be honest with you if writing in their phone does actually work for them. Celebrate wins along the way. I think this is a really important one because, again, this feels like this never-ending to-do list. And then in the spring, or maybe winter, depending on early deadlines, is when you hear back, right? And it's kind of like this big celebration of when the student gets in, like, right, oh, you were accepted to whatever school. But there's so much along the way that warrants celebration and praise that really can kind of help keep everyone going. Like, yes, you completed that essay. Yes, you submitted that application. Yes, you did that interview and it went really well. And allow yourself and your child to feel relief and feel like take a pause to celebrate their achievements and accomplishments before it's just like on to the next to-do item. It can kind of help make it feel a little bit less of this Mount Kilimanjaro of things to do. And the fact that you acknowledge it goes a really, really long way. So don't underestimate how much that means to hear for your teen. And students, so I can't see the full audience. I don't know who might be watching this as a recording afterwards, but if there is a way that you want to be helped during this process, I can pretty much guarantee you from every parent I've talked to, they want to know. They want to be supportive in the way that feels good to you, in a way that you're going to be able to let them in. So if it is a matter of like, hey, can you remind me to do this? Great, let them know that you kind of want like a little reminder, or, hey, can you make me work in the living room instead of in my room so I stay on task? Ask them to help you stay accountable. That is going to be helpful information for your parents to know that they can support you in the most effective way. Okay, so those were my tips. Those were everything I kind of wanted to share about where we are in this partnership, right, between parents, students, with this common goal of getting students to their best fit post-secondary setting. And of course, we're available for a 30-minute consultation at GE if you want to know about how we can help support you through this process. There's the College Center at Pally, so you're not alone. There's plenty of help. There's plenty of resources. Don't be afraid to lean on it. And that's it.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I'm at GE. You can always contact us if you need support. And I hope everyone has a beautiful evening, a beautiful week, and good luck with the college process.